Good morning, colleagues. I am Orde Fair, member of Team 57 of Cohort 4 JTC Mentorship Program. The name of my group is Dynamic Mentors. Today, my group will be looking at different ingredients that we can use to cook up a feast that will satisfy the insatiable need for knowledge for our students. This will show how we can use different tools in our classroom to cater to the 5E's in our lesson planning and also the 4C's that will help students to learn better. Stay tuned. So then you may ask, what are the 5E's? Now, teachers write lesson plans, and we follow what is called a 5E model lesson planning. The 5E stands for 1, engage, 2, to explore, 3, to explain, 4, to elaborate, and 5, to evaluate. Engage is the first stage or the first step in the cycle of learning for the students. It's the very first thing that is done in the lesson. So you have to have an introductory activity or whatever you do in order to take from the students' previous knowledge in order to build on that. So we want to know, as educators, what do the students know? Do they have any prior knowledge or prior experiences? How can we then use what they know to teach them? If they do not know, what materials, videos, work, case studies can we give the students in order to make it interesting for them to learn and to build that prior experience? The second stage is explore. Now, exploration. What do we mean by exploration in the lesson planning? At this particular stage, what the students will do is that they will actively explore, let's say communicate with their peers, and use scientific methods in order to come to grips with what exactly they were engaged with. What content were they engaged with, and how can they basically make sense of that in their own hands-on way? Now, explain. Explain has to do quite a lot with the teacher now. So the teacher will then provide materials, provide illustrations, provide content in such a way that will make students understand. Now, this will clarify certain misconceptions that the student may get in the exploration stage. The teacher leads this initiative or leads this phase by giving content that is meaningful and, of course, have students ask questions to the teacher will also ask questions to the students, and they get a framework in explaining exactly what does this mean, how does this work, how does this make sense in the real world. So to a large extent, explain means exactly what the word says. So explanations are given, more content is given in meaningful ways that students will learn. Now, we talk about elaborate as in the stage of the 5E's. What happens here is that the students are given the space to basically apply what they have learned. So to a large extent, the teacher or the facilitator will give some work so that the students will reinforce the knowledge or the content that was provided to them. And this is done before any evaluation or assessment is taking place, and that is fair. The last stage in the 5E model is evaluate. When we evaluate, what we are basically doing is assessing students' performance or assessing their learning. So it may take the form of formal assessment or informal assessment. It may take the form also of formative or summative assessment. So basically, what the educator wants to do is to assess the learning that would have taken place by the students to ensure that meaningful learning had in fact taken place. Of course, if you ask what are the 5E's, it's also important you ask what are the 4C's. And the 4C's cover critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. It's essential that whatever learning modality that takes place, the students ought to be thinking critical. They should be able to brainstorm, reverse brainstorm, use problem solving. And that leads right into creativity. How can they think of solutions to problems and be creative in solving same? Of course, we want students to, in everything, they should collaborate. That is one of the 21st century skills, to work together. and we need collaboration. And if there's collaboration, critical thinking, and also if there's creativity, then there must be communication. They must be able to pass on information in such a way that is effective. What is WebQuest? Now, the WebQuest is an inquiry-based learning platform that most of the content that the students will be getting is actually on the internet. Most, sometimes all of the information. Now, you can go on to webquest.org and type it in your URL and sign up and use this platform. Now, the purpose of WebQuest as an inquiry-based lesson modality is basically to have students use the information rather than just gathering the information and regurgitating same. So they can use the information, they can do quizzes which will evaluate them, and of course, to a large extent, they can engage in class discussions. It also provides for them to be very creative in delivering whatever content that they are answering to be evaluated. So, to a large extent, the purpose directly aligns with the 4C's. Now, listen to this very carefully now. There are 5 basic elements of the WebQuest, and they are introduction. You have task, process, resources, and evaluation and conclusion. So there are 5 basic elements that somewhat mirror the 5E lesson plan model that I would have explained earlier. And if that's the case, along with the definition for WebQuest, and if you go on, you will find it. It also brings up the critical thinking, collaboration of students, communication, and creativity. So the WebQuest is a perfect ingredient, a perfect tool to spice up your class. So now I'm going to explain how we can use the WebQuest to teach a subject, principles of business, and a topic, contracts. This will follow the 5E model, lesson planning, and foster the 4C's. So in the engage stage, you could put in the introduction part of the WebQuest a video, or a video from YouTube, embed that, or you could put a small case study and have students watch the video or read the case study. Now, in the exploration stage, there are some key words in contract, such as offer and acceptance, such as legality, such as consideration, such as misrepresentation. You would have these terms in the explore stage, and students are supposed to research them and give their opinion on what exactly they think these mean. Now, in the explain stage, there would be more information from the web. Could be videos, it could be some books, ebooks, or teacher could also upload notes on what these are, podcasts, and so on. So this would basically explain and give more information to the students about exactly what these terms mean, and explain some of the content that would want to be meted in this particular lesson. Now, at the elaborate stage, where the students are going to do some tasks to see if they understand the concept, the teacher could group the students. And in grouping their students, they could come up with some creative ways of discussing some questions and then uploading same to the WebQuest platform. Now, this of course would be able for the teacher to understand if there are any misconceptions that may need to be addressed. Evaluation could take place here, where they could do some formative assessment, because they could not teach us all of contracts in one lesson. So a formative assessment could be done in the form of quizzes, and this would have the teacher understand to what degree the assessment tool being used can let the teacher know if meaningful learning on what the specific objectives of that lesson were meted. So therefore, the WebQuest is perfect at following the 5E model lesson planning and to foster the 4C's for students.